I want you to picture this. A packed Christmas table, 12 people, cranberry sauce, pine-scented candles. My aunts laugh too loud on purpose. My uncle already red-faced from wine. The same family playlist on shuffle that somehow always finds Jingle Bell Rock. And my mother, stands up at the head of the table like she's about to make a toast. She taps her glass with a spoon. The room goes quiet, except for the heater clicking and the dog's nails on the hardwood. Mom smiles at everyone first, then she looks straight at me, and she says, loud enough to cut through the entire room, "I just want to say something, because I'm tired of pretending." She has never contributed a single thing to this family. Not once. A few people gasp. A few people pretend not to hear. Most people do that thing where they stare at their plate like the mashed potatoes are suddenly fascinating. And I feel it. The old familiar burn. Like I'm 14 again, standing in the kitchen while she lists everything wrong with me, and I'm not allowed to cry because she'll call that manipulation. My fork freezes halfway to my mouth. My youngest cousin whispers, "Oh my God." And my mom, because she can't help herself, keeps going. All she does is take. She shows up when it's convenient. She thinks she's better than us. And I'm done. I'm done protecting her image. Then she turns to the table and asks, like she's handing out an assignment, "Can anyone here name one thing she's ever done for this family?" Silence. I look around and realize something terrifying. They all believe her. And that's when my phone buzzes in my pocket. I don't even unlock it yet. I don't have to. Because I already know what it's going to say. And I also know, right then, with my mother standing over the turkey like she's delivering a verdict, if I don't finally tell the truth, it's going to cost me more than my pride. So I set my fork down. I wipe my hands on my napkin. I stand up. And I say, "Okay, let's talk about contributions. I've been the scapegoat for as long as I can remember. You know the role. The difficult one. The dramatic one. The one who never helps, even when you're the only person in the family who actually does. In our house, my brother Evan was the sun. Everything revolved around him. Evan got praise for breathing. Evan got applause for trying. Evan got called a good boy even when he crashed the car, even when he dropped out of college, even when he bounced from job to job like the floor was lava and responsibility was the heat. And me? If I got an A, Mom asked why it wasn't an A+. If I stayed late to tutor other kids, she asked why I wasn't home washing dishes. If I bought groceries with my own money, she'd tell people, "Oh, I had to remind her." My mother had a gift. She could take anything I did and repackage it into proof that I was selfish. And I learned early, the best way to survive was to disappear. So I disappeared into school, into part-time jobs, into scholarships. The day I got accepted into a good university, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd look at me like I mattered. Instead, she said, "Don't come back acting like you're better than everyone." That was my graduation gift. So I left. I moved out at 18 with 2 suitcases, a cheap laptop, and a promise to myself. I will build a life that doesn't require her permission. And for a while, I did. I worked my way through college. I took internships. I slept 4 hours a night. I kept my head down. And I stopped expecting anything from my family, except the occasional guilt text. "Call your mother. Your brother needs help. You don't visit enough." I started to feel free, until one day, in my junior year, I got a voicemail from my mom that sounded different. Not angry, not sharp, scared. Her voice shakes as she says, "We need help. It's urgent. Please call me back." And I did, immediately. Because no matter how many times someone breaks your heart, a part of you still wants to be the person they finally appreciate. I called her, and she didn't waste time. "We're behind," she said. Behind on what? The house. And my stomach dropped. Because that house wasn't just a building, it was the only stable thing my little sisters had. The only place that felt like home to them. The only place I could picture Christmas mornings and scraped knees and birthday candles. My mom's next words came out like she was confessing a crime. "We're about to lose it." I found out the truth in pieces. My mom and stepdad had refinanced at a terrible time, with a bad rate, because they wanted to consolidate debt. They'd also taken out a second loan for something that no one could clearly explain. Mom called it home improvements. but the kitchen looked exactly the same. Then my stepdad's work slowed down. Then Evan needed help, again. Then help became tens of thousands of dollars poured into a brother-shaped black hole of bad decisions. And the mortgage in a neighborhood that had gotten expensive, was massive. $7,200 a month. Every month. When Mom said the number out loud, it didn't even sound real. It sounded like a prank. But then she said something that made it worse. She said, "We can't tell anyone. Not we're embarrassed. Not we messed up. Number," she said. "Evan can't know. He'll panic. Your sisters can't know. They'll get upset. And your grandmother can't know because she'll judge me." And then she added, soft like a dagger, "You're the only one I can trust." That sentence should have made me feel important. Instead, it made me feel used. Because in my family, trust usually meant you're the only one we can squeeze without consequences. But I still couldn't picture my sisters watching strangers carry boxes out of their living room. So I asked the obvious question. "What do you need?" Mom exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Just cover it for a little while. Until we catch up. A little while. That's what she called it. So I did what I always did. I handled it. I called the lender directly. I asked what the fastest way was to prevent foreclosure. I asked what would happen if a third party paid. I asked how to set it up so the money would actually apply to the mortgage and not disappear into whatever financial mess they'd built. The bank didn't care who saved the house. The bank only cared that somebody did. I had a decent internship at the time, and I had savings because I lived like a monk. But $7,200? That wasn't tighten your belt money. That was your entire life changes money. So I did what desperate people do. I took on more work. I freelanced at night. I sold my car and took buses. I moved into a cheaper apartment with roommates. I ate ramen until I hated the sight of noodles. And that first month, when I sent the payment, I told myself, 1 month, 2 months, 3, max. My mom cried when she got the confirmation. "I'll pay you back," she said. "I swear." Then, right on schedule, the next month came. And the next. And the next. Every month, $7,200 left my account like a piece of my soul being auto-drafted. After the third month, I called my mom and said, "We need a plan. This isn't temporary." Mom snapped back like I'd insulted her. "Don't start. You said you'd help. Are you really going to abandon your family?" There it was. Not gratitude. Not accountability. Just a leash. So I made a decision that would define the next 8 years of my life. I stopped asking for appreciation. I stopped asking to be repaid, and I stopped expecting them to ever admit what I did. I kept paying for my sisters. Because they didn't ask for any of this. But here's the part I didn't see coming. My mother didn't just accept my help. She rewrote it. Within a year, she started telling people she'd handled everything. She'd say stuff like, "We had a rough patch, but I pulled us through. A mother always finds a way." And everyone would nod like she was a hero. Meanwhile, I'd be sitting there calculating how many hours I needed to work that week to keep the house standing. And the secret stayed a secret. Because my mom insisted on it. And because, stupidly, a part of me still wanted peace. Until I realized something else. The longer I paid, the bolder Evan got. Because Evan wasn't living in the real world. He was living in a world where the lights stayed on no matter what, and consequences were always optional. And eventually, he started calling the house his inheritance. Evan decided he was going to be an entrepreneur. He had what I call podcast confidence. You know, big dreams, no math. He started a business that changed names every few months. Marketing agency, crypto consulting, drop shipping, brand building. Every time it failed, he came home with a new excuse and the same open hand. And my mom treated him like he was a misunderstood genius. When I tried to warn her, she'd say, "You're just jealous because he's brave." Brave. Yeah, brave enough to gamble with everyone else's money. One summer, I visited for a weekend, just a weekend. I walk into the kitchen and see a stack of papers on the counter. Not Christmas cards, not recipes. Mortgage paperwork. My name is on it. Not as a guest, not as a reference, as a co-signer. I froze. I asked my mom, Why is my name on mortgage documents? She didn't look up from her coffee. Oh, we had to refinance. It was the only way to lower the payment. Did you refinance? With my name? She sighed like I was being dramatic. It's not a big deal. You were going to help anyway. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a secret. It was a trap. Because co-signing wasn't just helping. It was liability. It was my credit, my future, my ability to buy my own home someday. I confronted her hard, harder than I ever had. And for the first time, she got scared. Not because she felt bad. Because she realized I could stop. She softened her voice and put on the version of herself she saved for emergencies. Honey, don't make this a thing. We're family. This house is for everyone. For everyone. But somehow I was the only one paying for it. I demanded access to every mortgage statement going forward, every payment confirmation, every document. My mom agreed, reluctantly. And that's when I learned the real reason she'd forgotten to tell me she'd used my name. The refinance didn't just lower the payment. It put me on paper as someone responsible. If the house fell, I would fall with it. From that day on, I made another decision. If I was going to be forced into responsibility, I was going to protect myself. So I set up the payments directly through the lender portal, from my account, with two-factor authentication. I changed the mailing address for important notices to a P.O. box I controlled. And I started saving every statement like evidence. Because that's what it was now. Evidence. And for a while, it worked. I paid. The house stayed. My sisters stayed stable. Evan kept failing upward. And my mom kept telling anyone who would listen that I never came around. Then, in year 7, after nearly a decade of carrying a mortgage that wasn't mine, I got the call that changed everything. It wasn't from my mom. It was from the lender. The woman on the phone sounded polite in that dangerous way, like customer service trained her to stay calm while delivering bad news. Hi, we're calling because we received a request to change the account login and remove the current payment method. My blood went cold. I said that payment method is mine. She paused. Yes, that's why we're calling. We have concerns this may be unauthorized. I couldn't breathe for a second. Because there were only 3 people who knew enough details to even attempt that. Me, my mom, and someone in that house who'd been watching me save them for years and finally decided they deserved control. I whispered, "Was the request approved?" The woman said, "Not yet, but there was also a request to cancel the next scheduled payment." Cancel. My payment. My $7,200. My 8-year leash. And suddenly, I understood why my mother had been so eager to host Christmas this year. Why she'd been texting me nonstop. Please come home. It would mean so much. We need to be together. It wasn't about togetherness. It was about access. I almost didn't go. I should have stayed home. I should have protected my peace, ate takeout, watched movies, pretended I didn't have a family-shaped wound in my life. But my sisters begged me. They were teenagers now, old enough to sense something wrong, young enough to still want magic. So I went. For them. I arrived with gifts, like always. Not flashy gifts, thoughtful gifts. The kind you buy when you listen. My youngest sister, Lily, hugged me so tightly I felt her ribs through her sweater. "You came," she whispered, like she hadn't been sure. My mom barely hugged me. She did that stiff, one-arm thing, like she was greeting a coworker she didn't like. Then she immediately pointed to the kitchen. "Put the pie there." Not hello, not Merry Christmas. A task. I noticed little things right away. Evan was there early, sitting in the best chair, acting like it was his house. He wore a new watch. Expensive, the kind you don't buy when you're between opportunities. My stepdad wouldn't look at me. My mom kept checking her phone, smiling like she had a secret. And then I saw it. A folder on the buffet table near the plates. White, clean, crisp edges. Not a recipe. Not a Christmas card list. Paperwork. My stomach tightened. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Because I told myself, don't start a scene. Not on Christmas. But of course, my mother had already planned one. We sat down to eat. Everyone squeezed in. The room was warm. too warm. The kind of warm that makes you sleepy and careless. My aunt asked about my job, and my mom answered for me. She's busy, Mom said, dismissive. Always busy. I corrected her gently. Work's been good, actually. Mom smiled like I'd just confirmed her point. And she never visits, she added. But you know how she is. I saw Lily's face fall. I saw my other sister, Maya, clench her jaw. I tried to steer away. I asked about my cousins. I complimented the food. For 20 minutes, I played the game. Then my mom stood up. Glass. Spoon. Ting, ting, ting. And you already know what she said. She has never contributed a single thing to this family. I sat there, stunned. Not because it was new, but because she'd chosen to do it in front of everyone. Public humiliation. That was her favorite kind. And then she asked the room to name one thing I'd done. I looked at Evan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He smirked into his wine like he was watching a show. And that's when I felt my phone buzz. Payment canceled. Action required. My hands went cold. In that moment it clicked. This wasn't just about embarrassing me. This was about pushing me out. Because if I was selfish, then they didn't have to feel guilty. If I was ungrateful, then they didn't have to admit they'd been living off me. If I was nothing, then taking from me wasn't theft. It was justified. I looked at my mom, standing there, waiting for the room to join her in tearing me apart. And something in me, something quiet and exhausted, finally stood up. Not anger. Clarity. I stood. The chair legs scraped the floor like a warning. And I said, "Okay, let's talk about contributions." My mom blinked, surprised I'd responded. "Sit down," she snapped. "No," I said, calm, clear. "You wanted the room to name one thing I've done, so I'm going to make it easy." I reached into my purse and pulled out my own folder. Thicker than hers, organized, tab-labeled, the kind of folder you bring when you're done being gaslit. My mom's smile faltered. Evan's smirk disappeared. And I saw it, the first crack in their confidence. Because liars are brave until paperwork enters the room. I didn't raise my voice. That's the part people don't expect. Revenge doesn't have to scream. Sometimes it just shows receipts. I placed the folder on the table gently, like I was setting down a glass of water. Then I opened it to the first page. A mortgage statement. I slid it toward my aunt, because she was sitting closest, and she had always acted like my mom's personal jury. "This," I said, "is the mortgage statement for this house." My mom laughed, sharp and fake. "What is this? Are you trying to be dramatic?" I kept going. "And these," I said, flipping pages one by one, "are payment confirmations." I tapped a highlighted column. $7,200. Every month. Someone inhaled. I looked at my mother. 8 years. The room didn't move. It was like everyone collectively forgot how to chew. My mom's face tightened. "That's," she started. I held up my hand. "Let me finish." I turned to Evan. "And before anyone tries to pretend this is some misunderstanding, I want to say something clearly. I didn't do this for praise. I didn't do it for control. I did it because my sisters deserved a roof." Lily's eyes filled with tears. Maya whispered, You did that?" I nodded once. Yes. My stepdad finally looked up. His face had that sickened expression of a man realizing the bill came due. My mom tried to recover. She straightened her shoulders and said, loud enough to reclaim the room, "So you paid a few times. That doesn't mean you contributed to the family. You were supposed to help. Family helps." "A few times?" I repeated softly. Then I pulled out the summary page I'd printed, the one that added everything up. I didn't even need to say the total. The number was right there, bold. My aunt's mouth fell open when she saw it. My cousin choked on a laugh, like the kind that escapes when shock is too big to hold inside. My mom stared at the page like it was written in a foreign language. Evan's face went pale. And then Mom did what she always did when cornered. She attacked. "You think money is love? You think you can buy your way into being a good daughter?" I almost smiled, because there it was, her final defense. "Make it moral. Make the person who saved you feel dirty for saving you." So I nodded slowly and said, "Okay, if money isn't love, Then why did someone in this house try to cancel my payment? Silence slammed down. My mom's eyes flicked, just once, to Evan. And that's when the third twist appeared, right on my mother's face. Because in that second, I realized something huge. Mom didn't cancel the payment. Evan did. He'd gotten access somehow, probably by watching, probably by digging through mail, probably by using the same entitled logic he used for everything. And Mom had been gearing up to publicly destroy me while having no idea her golden child was the one jeopardizing the house. I looked at Evan. Did you try to cancel it? He scoffed, too fast. What? No. That's crazy. But his voice cracked on crazy. I turned to my mom. Ask him to show his phone. Right now. My mom hesitated, like the idea of questioning Evan was physically painful. Evan, she said, softer. Did you? Evan slammed his hand on the table. Why are we doing this on Christmas? She's turning you against me. And I almost laughed again, because that line was straight out of his usual playbook. So I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and turned the screen so everyone could see the email alert. Payment canceled. Action required. Then I opened my banking app, and there it was, a reversal request pending. My mom's face shifted from anger to fear. Not fear for me, fear for herself. Because she finally understood what I'd understood for years. If I stop, the house stops. And then came the moment that made the entire dinner table go dead quiet. I reached into my folder and pulled out one last document. Not a payment confirmation. Not a statement. A legal page. I slid it across the table to my mom, and I said, "You want to know my contribution?" She stared at it, confused. "What is this?" I replied, "That is the deed transfer document from the refinance you didn't tell me about." My mom's lips parted. I continued, steady. "When you refinanced using my name, the lender required my interest to be recorded. So no, this isn't just your house." I tapped the paper gently. "It's mine too." You could feel the oxygen leave the room. My mom whispered, "That's not—" "It is," I said, "and I have the recorded copy." Evan stood halfway, panicking. No, this is insane." I looked him dead in the eye. "And here's the part you didn't think through when you tried to cancel my payment." I paused. Because timing matters. Then I delivered it. The mortgage is on auto pay from my account. If it fails, my credit is hit first, yes. But if someone is tampering with it, that's fraud. Evan froze. My stepdad swallowed hard. My mom's face went slack like she'd stepped off a cliff. And then I said the sentence I'd been holding back for 8 years. "I'm done being your silent sponsor." My mom's voice went high and shaky. "You're threatening us. On Christmas. After everything I've done for you?" There it was again. The rewrite. The reality distortion. I looked around the table and saw my sisters watching me like they were trying to understand who I really was. So I didn't insult my mom, I didn't yell. I told the truth. "I paid because you asked," I said, "and because I cared about them." I nodded toward Lily and Maya. "I didn't tell anyone because you demanded it." My mom snapped. "Because it was private." "No," I corrected gently. "Because you didn't want anyone to know you needed me." That landed like a slap. My aunt whispered, "Is this true?" My mom glared at her like betrayal. Then Evan tried to take control back. He leaned forward, voice slick. "Okay, fine. You paid. Congratulations. Do you want a medal? That doesn't mean you get to own the house." I looked at him and said, "You're right." He blinked, triumphant for half a second. And then I added, "I don't get to own it. I already do. On paper." His face fell. And that's when I opened my folder again and pulled out one last page. A letter. I drafted it the week before, after the lender called, after I realized someone was trying to mess with the account. I slid it across the table, not to my mom, to my stepdad. He read the first line and his hands started shaking. My mom leaned in. "What is that?" I said. "That is a notice of intent." My stepdad's eyes flicked up, terrified. I kept my voice even. "It says, effective January 1st, I will no longer pay this mortgage unless a new agreement is signed." My mom exploded. "You can't do that. You'll make us homeless." I nodded once. "Yes, That's what happens when the person paying stops paying. The room went silent again, because everybody felt it. The simple, brutal math. My mom's voice cracked. How could you do this to your own mother? And I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel guilt. I felt distance. Because I finally saw the truth. My mom didn't love me. She loved what I could absorb. So I said, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm stopping something I've been doing. For you. Then I turned to Lily and Maya, because they deserved to hear this clearly. I will never let you be homeless, I said. Never. You have me, always. Lily started crying openly now. Maya's face crumpled, like she'd been holding herself together for years. My mom saw their reaction and realized she was losing the room. So she tried one final tactic. She pointed at my folder and said, venomous. You planned this. You came here to humiliate me. I paused, let that hang. Then I said the line that ended her entire performance. No. You came here to humiliate me. I let the room remember. The spoon on the glass. The speech. The question. Name one thing she's done. Then I added quieter. I just refused to bleed in silence anymore. My mom opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, because she had no script for a daughter who didn't beg. Evan suddenly stood, frantic. Mom, I told you she'd do this. She thinks she's better than us. Sit down, my stepdad snapped. Everyone froze, because my stepdad almost never spoke at the table. He looked at Evan like he was seeing him for the first time. Did you try to cancel the payment? He demanded. Evan sputtered. I was just… Did you? My stepdad repeated, louder. Evan's face twisted. And then he said something that confirmed everything. I was trying to help. She controls it. She controls all of us. I was going to move it to Mom's account so it's ours. Again. Our. Not safe. Not stable. Ours. My mom whispered, Evan. And in that moment, I watched her heart break. Not because she'd hurt me, but because Evan had finally hurt her. And I'll be honest, a part of me felt satisfied. Not because I wanted her pain, because I wanted truth. Then I stood up straighter and said, here's what's going to happen. I looked at my mom. Starting January 1st, I'm done paying in secret. We're doing this legally and transparently. I slid 3 pages across the table. Option A. The house goes into a trust that protects Lily and Maya. The mortgage payments continue. For them. Not for Evan's business. Not for anyone's pride. My mom stared at the pages like they were hand grenades. Option B. I stop paying, and you figure it out. Then I added the part that made the room collectively inhale. And because someone attempted to tamper with the lender account, I already notified the bank to flag the mortgage for security review. Evan's eyes widened. My mom's face went white. Because they suddenly realized. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was paperwork, systems, consequences, real life. My mom's voice came out small. You wouldn't report your own brother. I looked at Evan, then back at her. I'm not reporting anyone if everyone stops lying and signs the agreement. That was the offer. The last one. And the wild part? For once, I wasn't asking them to love me. I was setting terms. My mom sat down slowly, like her legs didn't work. She looked around the table, at my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, people she'd spent years impressing. And now they were looking at her differently, not like a strong mother, like someone who'd been caught. My aunt cleared her throat. So, all this time, she said carefully, you've been telling us she never helped. My mom's eyes flicked to me, full of hatred and fear, and she whispered, you were supposed to keep it private. There it was. Not thank you, not I'm sorry. Just you were supposed to stay quiet. I took a breath and said the final truth. I did keep it private. For 8 years. And you used that silence to make me the villain. Then I closed my folder. Not dramatically. Decisively. And I said, I'm leaving now. My mom's head snapped up. You can't just leave. We're not finished. Oh, I said, putting on my coat. We're finished. I turned to Lily and Maya. You two, come with me for a walk. My mom shot up. They're not going anywhere. Maya stood too. And for the first time in my life, she looked at our mom and said, "Stop. Just one word." But it hit like a door slamming. Lily wiped her face and stood beside her sister. My mom looked around for support. Evan stared at the table like it might open and swallow him. My stepdad wouldn't look at her. And my mother, my powerful, terrifying mother, finally realized she was alone. We walked out into the cold night. The air felt clean, like the world outside their house had oxygen again. Lily whispered, "Is it true? You've been paying?" I nodded. Maya's voice shook. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me," I said, "and because Mom didn't want anyone to know." Lily's face tightened. "She said you didn't care." I swallowed hard. "I cared so much it almost ruined my life," I said quietly. We stood under the porch light. Christmas music muffled behind the door. Then my phone buzzed again. A text. From my mom. 2 words. "You're evil." I stared at it for a second. Then I did something that felt like stepping out of a cage. I blocked her. Right there, under the porch light, Maya saw. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. And that's the moment I realized the ending wasn't going to be them finally appreciating me. The satisfying end was going to be this. Me finally choosing myself. In the weeks after Christmas, everything changed. My stepdad signed the agreement. My mom refused at first. Refused because signing meant admitting I wasn't worthless. Signing meant acknowledging reality. But reality doesn't care about pride. The lender security review happened. Access was locked down. Evan couldn't touch anything. And when my mom finally realized I meant it, when she realized the money wasn't coming unless the trust was set up, she signed too. Not with gratitude. With resentment. But she signed. The house was protected for Lily and Maya, exactly like I promised. And Evan? Evan moved out within 3 months. Not because he suddenly grew up. Because when the house stopped being his playground, he went looking for another one. And my mom? She tried to call me for months. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she raged. Sometimes she acted like nothing happened. But I never went back to the old role. I never went back to being the family punching bag with a bank account. Because that Christmas dinner taught me something I should have learned a long time ago. If someone can look you in the eye while you're holding them up and still call you useless, they don't deserve your silence. They don't deserve your sacrifice. And they definitely don't deserve your money. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt. Now I know better. Revenge is when they can't use you anymore. And you still end up okay. If you made it this far, hit like, because you survived the whole dinner with me. Subscribe if you want more real stories with real endings. And if someone in your life is only nice when they need something, let this be your sign. Keep the receipts.